guys make threes who it wasn't really their thing coming into that game. How do you view this second kind of matchup with them in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have, a ball dominant player that's really good, who garners a lot of attention, and rightfully so. And so, like, you have to be able to, you know, guard him and their actions. And no matter what you do, they're very good at playing off of him and whatever leverage you're trying to create defensively. But they do a good job in just taking their time, their execution, knowing when they have an advantage. And with that, we overdid some things, and, some guys that are very low volume in threes, made some. And Banks and Combs, I think it's both of their career highs in three-pointers made, if I'm not mistaken. So, but they're good players. It wasn't like we didn't think they're good players just because they're low volume shooters. But like we were trying to, we probably overdid some things, and just have to do a better job of, just knowing where everybody's at and keeping people out of rotations. And obviously when you do that, you're going to have better block-out responsibility.
They're a team that doesn't have a lot of rim protection, so obviously they're going to try to keep the ball out of there. What do you do against teams like that, where you're trying to dictate terms and kind of play the game on your terms?
Right.
You're a strong shooting team, but you do have guys in there. Like, how do you find the balance there when another team is trying to take that away?
Yeah, they do a good job of, keeping the ball out of the paint. They're a very good defensive team. They have very active hands. Their hand activity is elite. If you're careless with the ball, if you're loose with the ball, if you showcase the ball, they're going to, at times take it from you, and other times, get deflections. And, you have to do a good job of securing the basketball, making good decisions, but also probing the defense. Anytime you face a good defensive team, you're just not going to come right down the court and get the ball where you want to get it. Like, you have to execute, you have to screen, you got to be able to play with some angles when you're screening, good pace to what you're doing to get the ball in opportunities. And that doesn't guarantee you're going to score. That does guarantee you will get the ball in position to score. And that's what you're trying to do. You can't make shots for people. And you just have to be able to execute to the best of your ability and keep getting the ball where it needs to be. But, hence your question, that's what they're trying to stop, and that's that's kind of the cat and mouse of basketball and coaching is, preventing the ball from getting where you want it to get, and the other team trying to get the ball in those positions.
You have two guys who have proven to be kind of elite rebounders this year, but I guess what is the importance of capitalizing on that with guards like CJ being able to rebound? Fletcher gets a huge win against Oregon. I think Braden had 8 the other night. Those guys taking advantage of the attention that you have to put on Trey and Oscar.
Yeah, and that's the, and that's the challenge for us to be an elite rebounding team collectively, not coming in and out. The one thing you have to take in is that some games you have more rebounds than others. Sometimes you'll be like, well, this team shot 58%, this team shot 57%. Well, you're not going to have as many rebounds. Like the way they shot the ball in the first half and the way we shot the ball in the second half, you're going to have a lot of rebounds, right? And so now you have to look at the rebound percentage of things, both offensively and defensively, of what you're doing. So I feel really good if those two guys are going to rebound that way going forward. They haven't rebounded every single game that way. They were on that trek in non-conference, getting to conference. And they've had, both of them have had a couple games in conference that way, but it wasn't like they were doing in non-conference where double-doubles were, pretty common, and double-figure reboundings were pretty common. And so, like, that's, you have different responsibilities each game, but the similarities are still there. Shots go up, go get the basketball. Shots go up, make sure you check out, go get the basketball, things of that nature. But they obviously were very, very good. But that's what we need, not just from those two. We need it from everybody. That's not going to go away. We have to have that hunger on the glass to be able to compete, down the stretch here.
Matt, obviously a little bit's going to be the way Nebraska defends, but you guys had a high volume of threes that game. Is that something you want for a healthy offense, is to be able to get a lot of good shots?
We just want good shots, whether that's 5 feet from the rim or it's a wide open step in three. That's just what we were going to get there. And it's just like, if you don't understand how they defend, it's really hard. It's like when you hear people speak on it and talk about it, it lets you know that they don't understand what they're doing. They just make you operate in the middle third of the court. And if you want to post up low and you want to drive the basketball to the baseline, you better be pretty damn good. You better be pretty damn good, because we have the guys that we talk about doing it, Trey Kaufman-Wren, Braden Smith. Like, we just try to keep everybody away from that, because once you get into that beehive, you got to have the ability to get out of it. And they're good. Like, and that's how they play. So, like, if your dog's sitting in the corner or Fletcher Lawyer sitting in the corner, they defend it the same way. It does not matter who's there. It's their rules. They stick to their rules. But the one thing that they do is they blitz that basketball when it gets down by that baseline. And they get after it, and they get their hands up. And so you can go into that if you want to. But you saw a couple of our passes, they got picked right there. But we also had some guys make some plays there, but we stayed away from it as much as we can. With that being said, now you don't get that direct post up to TK on the block. You just don't. You're going to get TK at the nail in the middle. You get Oscar there, and that's where those decisions had to be made, whether you get a flip-up lob, a spray-out three with a one more pass. You know, you're going to get a lot of that against them. This is different. They don't defend that way, but they're still, even though they're different, they're stingy in the same regard. They like I said earlier, they have active hands. They're physical. They're a tough team. I know it's probably not being dwelled upon them right now because they just lost on the road, but that's the nature of competition. And, you know, we will get a very competitive, very physical, very handsy team on Saturday. We understand that. And he gets a lot of credit for how good of an offensive coach he is, but he's just as equal as a defensive coach. His teams are very, very good on both ends of the court.
What did it say about Braden at Nebraska that you're playing a really good defensive team that generates a lot of turnovers? He plays 40-plus minutes and I think only has the one turnover. And I think it was a pretty lame turnover.
And that's, you know, for us, like, that's what we need. You know, he's that good of a player, that good of a decision maker. When he has those games at 5-6 turnovers, that makes it hard for us. That really does, because now the one thing about playing and not turning it over as a group, like, now you offset some deficiencies somewhere else. Like, you're not going to be great in everything. If you're great in everything, then God bless you. Like, you know, you have an unbelievable team. So, like, that for us is something we feel we can do. You know, we can operate around 8 to 10 turnovers a game as a group. And so that's the reason I said that after the game. It's not, you know, sure, we didn't want that one tough stretch right there, but when you play 45 minutes against an elite defense and you have 11 turnovers on the road, you're gonna take that. You're going to live with that, even though a couple of those plays, like, you know, weren't encouraging.
You guys are coming off of a top 10 road win. It kind of unfolded in an especially emotional way. You've got a big game waiting for you guys next week, a couple of them. I guess, what are you looking for from this group, especially as veteran as it is? Do you expect them to be able to handle a trip like this in the middle of all that?
Yeah, this is the biggest game of the season. Yeah, when you get down here, you know, your next game's always the biggest game of the year. Like, nobody's looking ahead to anybody else. Like, but everybody's doing that. If you have the right locker room and the right staff, you know, that's always happening. You know, we're playing an NCAA tournament team. They're going to have a sellout. You know, this is the biggest game of the year for them. It's the biggest game of the year for us. But after it's over with, and our next game's the biggest game, and their next game's it doesn't end. That shit doesn't end in February. You know, you got to get back up on the horse and be ready to roll.
A lot of people get locked into their rotations and kind of sticking with what works, but you've kind of tinkered with different guys being on the floor with each other a little bit. Mm-hmm. How much ahead of the game does that maybe set you up moving forward, that a lot of guys have been on the floor with each other? Yeah,
it helps. I think you got to, you know, kind of trust your instincts at times, but you think about some things like, you know, I thought about TK, you know, playing some 5 just because where you can get the ball offensively, he helps with that because he can get into those short rolls a little bit better at the 5 than he can the 4. And Doesn't mean that you will, but you just project it that way because that's where we were last year, right? Like we could dictate a game offensively because we were so good, but we're also picking on somebody 270 versus trying to pick on somebody who's 230. That mobility is just different. And so now if we can run some false action and make them handle 2 or 3 different things, now we get TK right there. And now if you have skill with that, he's got his shovel shot, he's got his drive, he's got his passes out, he's got his flip up lob, whatever it might be. And so like that's, something that we really wanted to do. And then like our smaller lineup, they made a run on our smaller lineup. Like we had that in there to defend those, those actions to be able to do it. And we didn't do that good of a job, to be frank with you. But the number one thing that where we struggled the most in our defense at the end of the game was just concentration. And that wasn't who we were subbing in. That was our mainstays. Like they have to do a better job of concentrating. Like we get backdoored. We just put somebody to a side one time. Like we didn't take up some space on guys that could make plays. We didn't handle a simple flare action, off a single that we handled 2 or 3 times. And that's what's frustrating. Like sometimes people hold particular plays to the end of a game, and then you haven't seen it. Even though you went through it, even though you talked about it, you drilled it, you haven't seen it for an hour and 45 minutes, and all of a sudden with 5 minutes to go in the game, bam, there it is. No, they got us in that stretch on things that they run all the time, and they do it, and we just, we were late a couple times, we leave our feet one time. We just have to have better concentration and better discipline, because throughout the course of the game, our effort was at a high level. Like there's no arguing that point. So you gotta, when you have that kind of an effort, you gotta have that kind of concentration. And that's where it was. We have to do a better job concentrating with some of those things, because you can play different lineups and do different things. You still gotta execute. You put a lineup on there that you think is gonna help in a certain area, but also like Oscar's getting every rebound and I got him out of the game. And so like now you're trying to stop something, and if you're not, that was. But I also believe this with him. You see me pull him quick sometimes. A lot of times that's on just fatigue, what I'm seeing in his face.
Oscar said he was gassed in the first half.
He's gassed a lot. And I'll do that sometimes. We're like, man, he just made 2 shots. Like, yeah, like his tongue's down by his shoelaces. Like, but that also got the tip for us. When we subbed him back in overtime, got the tip for us. We score that basket, and then he's pretty fresh. And he's proven to be pretty fresh. And when he's fresh on the glass, that's when he's at his best. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.